It starts with something so subtle, most people don't even notice it at first. A belt that feels a little looser than usual. A favorite pair of trousers slipping down just slightly. A comment from a friend. You're looking a bit slimmer these days. And you smile, maybe even feel a bit proud, thinking perhaps your recent changes in diet are paying off. But then, something begins to shift. You didn't intend to lose weight. You're not dieting. You're not exercising more. And yet the numbers on the scale keep falling. A pound here, another the next week. By the time you realize it, 10 pounds have quietly vanished. You look in the mirror and notice your face seems more hollow, your hands more veiny. The softness in your arms has turned into sharpness. This is not the kind of weight loss that feels healthy. It feels like something is missing, something you can't quite name. For many older adults, this sudden and unexplained weight loss doesn't just signal a change in appetite or metabolism. It can sometimes be the body's quiet way of saying, something deeper is happening. And in some cases, it's one of the earliest, most easily missed signs that the body is beginning its final chapter, even when no illness has been diagnosed. This isn't said to scare you, but to open a conversation that's rarely spoken out loud. Because in many families, when someone over 70 starts dropping weight, they brush it off. You've just been busy. Maybe you've been eating less. It's probably just the heat. But what if it's more than that? What if this seemingly benign change is the first flicker of a deeper story unfolding beneath the surface? One man shared with us that his mother, who had always maintained a strong appetite and a love for food, suddenly stopped finishing her meals. She would push the food around on her plate, smile politely, and say she was full. Within 2 months, she lost nearly 15 pounds. No major illness was found at first, but soon after she began to tire more easily, lost interest in her favorite hobbies, and started sleeping longer. 6 months later, she passed quietly in her sleep. Looking back, her son said, the weight loss was her body's first whisper. I just didn't know how to listen. If you're still watching, I want to gently encourage you to share this video with someone who might need to hear this. Sometimes the smallest signs tell us the most important truths, and sometimes what we share might help another family catch something just in time. Because unexplained weight loss in older adults, especially when it comes without a clear cause, can often signal a gradual shutdown in how the body's processing nutrients. It might not be a disease. It might not even show up in blood tests, but it can reflect a quiet slowing down, a decreased interest in life's physical world, or a deeper systemic fatigue. You might notice it's not just the pounds that disappear. It's also energy, enthusiasm, curiosity, that inner drive to get up and move, to try something new, to plan the next day's meal. When that fire begins to dim, the body begins to shed what it no longer thinks it needs. This doesn't happen to everyone, and it doesn't mean sudden weight loss is always a sign of the end. But when it comes hand in hand with a few other silent shifts, like increased fatigue, less engagement, or emotional withdrawal, it's worth paying attention. And if you've ever looked in the mirror and asked yourself, why am I shrinking when I'm not even trying to? This is the kind of reflection that deserves a deeper look, not just another excuse. Sometimes the final year doesn't begin with drama or diagnosis. It begins with softness, with quiet withdrawal, with a body that simply starts saying no, not with words, but with subtle signs. If you're still here, still listening with an open heart, thank you. This isn't an easy topic, but it's one that could make all the difference. In a moment, we'll explore what this type of weight loss might actually mean in practical, emotional, and even spiritual terms, and what you can still do about it, because there are things you can do. And knowing is always better than guessing. There's something deeply human about wanting to believe that everything is fine, especially when nothing hurts, when no diagnosis has been handed down, when life still hums along with its daily rhythms. You'll wake up, make your tea, read the newspaper, maybe call a friend. And yet the clothes that once fit snugly now hang loose. The once round cheeks in the mirror now hold shadows beneath the bones. You tell yourself it's just a phase. Maybe your taste buds have changed. Maybe your stomach is more sensitive. Maybe it's the stress of the world lately, or the loneliness that comes and goes like a tide. But underneath those explanations might be something deeper. Because the body is wiser than we often give it credit for. It doesn't always scream. Sometimes it simply fades. There is a pattern seen time and again in hospice care, in geriatrics, in the quiet observations of those who sit with elders near the end of life. A pattern of gradual letting go. The appetite is often one of the first things to vanish, not out of refusal, but from a lack of need. The body begins to conserve energy. Digestion slows, muscles soften, and weight slips away like sand through an open hand. If you're still watching, I'm glad you're here, because it means you care. It means you're not afraid to look beneath the surface and ask the harder questions. And that's where real understanding begins. Now let's go a little deeper. One of the hidden causes of this kind of weight loss is something many people never talk about: emotional depletion. After a certain age, life takes its toll in ways that aren't always visible. Grief settles in quietly after losing a spouse, a lifelong friend, a sense of purpose. And with that grief, the body responds. Less food, less energy, less desire to hold on. I once heard a woman, 82 years old, describe it like this: "It's not that I want to go, it's just that I don't want to keep trying so hard to stay." Her daughter noticed that she was eating smaller portions, skipping breakfast entirely. Her posture became a little more bent. She started sleeping longer, laughing less. And when she finally passed, peacefully and without pain, the family realized that her body had been preparing them, and her, for months. That's why it matters so much to notice these signs early. Not because we can always stop what's happening, but because we can meet it with compassion, understanding, and presence. We can start having conversations that matter. And for those of you watching who are experiencing this yourself, if the meals feel harder to finish, if the energy is harder to summon, if the body feels like it's pulling inward, I want to say something gently from the heart. This doesn't mean you've reached the end. It may simply mean your body is asking you to listen more closely, to nourish it not just with calories, but with love, connection, warmth. Sometimes what we really hunger for isn't food, it's to be seen, heard, held. If you're still with me, I'd like to invite you to share this video. Not just because it might help someone, but because it might spark a conversation that was never going to happen otherwise. Maybe with a sibling, a friend, or even your doctor. Weight loss is a signal. It might be soft, it might be slow, but it's worth paying attention to, especially when it comes without effort or reason, because behind that signal is a story. And sometimes just listening to the story is enough to change its ending. In the next part, we'll gently explore what kind of weight loss patterns are considered most concerning and why some seniors, despite appearing outwardly fine, begin this quiet fading without ever recognizing the path they're on. And yes, we'll also talk about what can be done, even in these moments of uncertainty. There's a strange comfort in routines. The way we wake up, fold our blanket, pour the tea just so. The way we reach for that one breakfast dish we've always liked. 2 slices of toast, maybe a soft-boiled egg. But then one morning we leave the toast untouched. The egg gets cold and we think, maybe I just wasn't hungry today. But then it happens again and again, until even the most comforting meals no longer call to us. This is often where the quiet kind of weight loss begins. Not from a sudden illness, not from anything a doctor can detect in blood work, but from a soft unraveling of appetite, a body deciding it needs less, a spirit subtly withdrawing, not out of sadness necessarily, but from a kind of quiet resignation. When doctors talk about unintentional weight loss, they often look for a cause: cancer, thyroid problems, digestive issues. But what they don't always talk about, what families rarely expect, is that sometimes the cause isn't medical, it's existential, emotional, relational. Because something else happens when weight disappears. Identity shifts. People who've always been the strong one, the big eater, the rock of the family, they begin to see themselves differently, and so do others. And that shift can be unsettling, confusing, even frightening. A man in his early 80s once told me, "I stopped recognizing the man in the mirror. I looked frail, even though I didn't feel sick. And somehow that made me feel invisible." If you're still watching, I want to say this clearly. Losing weight in later life doesn't mean you're disappearing. It doesn't mean you failed. It means your body's trying to speak to you in a language that's not always easy to hear. But it is still your body, your story, and it matters. And here's something else that rarely gets said. Not all weight loss is physical. Sometimes people begin shedding other parts of themselves, roles, responsibilities, connections. The woman who used to host Sunday dinner stops calling. The grandfather who always gave advice becomes quieter. These two are forms of loss, and they too can be signs. But here's the good news. You are not powerless in the face of these changes. There are things you can do, gentle, loving, life-affirming things that bring warmth and weight back to the spirit and sometimes even to the body. Start by noticing what still brings you joy. Is it music, gardening, talking with your grandchildren? These moments might feel small, but they're anchors. They tell the body, stay here. There is still more to taste, more to feel, more to love. And if you're caring for someone who is experiencing this quiet fading, know this. Your presence matters more than you think. A shared meal, even if barely touched. A walk together, even if slow. A conversation that lingers longer than usual. These are not just comforts. They are connections. And connection sometimes is more nourishing than food. If you're still with me, I'm deeply grateful. These conversations aren't always easy, but they are necessary. And I believe with all my heart that naming the truth, even when it's painful, is a kind of healing in itself. In the next part of our journey, we'll look at a few real stories of people who turned this quiet warning into a turning point, where love, attention, and gentle care didn't just slow the weight loss, but brought back vitality, meaning, and even laughter. Because sometimes the body only needs to know that we still want to stay. Not all stories of sudden weight loss lead to an ending. Some begin again. Let me tell you about Elaine. She was 79 when her daughter noticed she had lost nearly 12 pounds in 3 months. Elaine was always full of life, the kind of woman who wore bright scarves and never missed her morning tea on the porch. But something had shifted. She no longer seemed excited about cooking or calling friends. Her laugh, once quick and infectious, had grown quieter. Her daughter was worried, but Elaine brushed it off. Just getting older, she said with a shrug. But her daughter didn't stop there. Instead of pushing or lecturing, she started showing up every morning at 9 with a little breakfast tray. Not fancy food, just something simple. Oatmeal with cinnamon, a sliced banana, and a few walnuts on the side. She played the music Elaine used to hum to. She talked about books they both loved. They sat even in silence. But they sat together. And something shifted again. It wasn't dramatic, but over a few weeks, Elaine began eating a little more. She smiled more often. One morning, she insisted on making the tea herself. Then almost suddenly, she asked to go to the farmer's market. The same woman who had seemed to slowly vanish was starting to return. Not just in weight, but in presence, in color, in voice. If you're still watching, perhaps this part is for you. Because maybe you're the Elaine. Or maybe you're her daughter. Maybe you're wondering whether the small things really matter. Whether showing up, even when you don't have the right words, is enough. And I'm here to tell you, it is. The body responds to more than nutrients. It listens to music, to love, to intention. And when the world around you whispers that it's okay to fade, a single voice saying, stay a while longer, can change everything. This isn't about pretending everything is fine. It's about gently saying, you are not alone. Now that can be enough to awaken the part of the spirit that still wants to eat, still wants to walk, still wants to dream. And let's be clear, this doesn't always mean the weight comes back, but sometimes something else does. A sense of belonging, a willingness to try, a memory that sparks a smile. These are the quiet victories that no medical chart can capture. If you're still here and still listening with your heart open, this might be the moment to ask yourself, who in your life is quietly fading, and what would it mean to simply sit beside them? Not to fix, not to feed, just to be there. Because in a world that rushes and forgets, presence is a form of medicine. In the next part of our journey, we'll explore how this connection to life, this daily act of choosing to engage, can physically shift the body's chemistry. We'll look at how certain foods, routines, and gentle physical practices can reignite not just appetite, but vitality, and how, even in the later years, rebirth is still possible. There's something almost magical about the way the body responds to kindness. Not just emotional kindness, but physical kindness. A warm hand, a shared moment, a bowl of soup offered without expectation. In Elaine's case, it wasn't a change in medication or a sudden return to medical treatments that sparked her revival. It was rhythm, a return to a routine her body could trust. Warm food at the same hour, a familiar voice saying, "Good morning." Small, almost invisible rituals that told her body, "You are still here, and you still matter." Many people don't realize that as we age, our hunger cues change. The signals we once felt so clearly, those rumblings of hunger, the cravings, begin to fade. And without routine, without stimulation, it becomes easy to skip meals, easy to forget, easy to fade. But when food is tied to meaning, when it's paired with memory and emotion, the body often remembers what the mind forgets. One man found that when his wife prepared the same dish his mother used to make, a simple lentil stew with thyme, he began eating with more enthusiasm. He said it wasn't the taste, necessarily. It was the memory, the warmth, the sense of something old coming back to visit. If you're still watching, this is where I want to pause and remind you. If you're going through this right now, whether it's your own appetite that's fading or someone you love who seems to be slipping, there is still time to reconnect, not through force, not through guilt, but through small acts of love that invite the body to stay. Because here's something few people say out loud. Eating is emotional. And sometimes a soul that is weary needs comfort before it needs calories. So what can help? Warm, nourishing foods. Foods that smell good, feel soft, and remind us of safety. Think stews, homemade soups, toast with honey, a ripe mango, something that says, "This is home." And when you pair these with soft music, candlelight, or conversation, you create not just a meal, but a moment. And the body listens. There is also growing science behind this. Studies have shown that social eating with someone, even silently, can improve digestion, increase appetite, and even support immune function in older adults. The body thrives in connection, and so does the spirit. If you're still here with me, I want to invite you to think of one small way you can make eating more meaningful. Maybe it's calling a neighbor and inviting them over for lunch. Maybe it's lighting a candle for yourself at dinner. Maybe it's playing that old jazz record while you make breakfast. These moments are medicine. In our next and final part, we'll talk about how to tell when weight loss is a gentle phase or a true warning sign. We'll explore what to look for, when to speak to a professional, and how to approach this season of life not with fear, but with calm attention and tenderness. Because this journey doesn't need to be rushed, it only needs to be seen. The question we must finally ask is this: when does weight loss cross the line from something to monitor to something to truly worry about? The truth is, there is no one answer. No single number on the scale that defines the moment. For some, it's 10 pounds. For others, it's less. But what matters more than the number is the story surrounding it. The energy, the light in the eyes, the will to participate in life. If weight loss comes alongside other signs, slower movements, increased fatigue, shorter conversations, a disinterest in things once loved, then it may be time to pause and gently ask, what's really happening here? Because sometimes the body is telling us it's simply tired, not sick, not broken, just tired. And that is not a failure. It is part of being human. But sometimes, too, the body is asking for help, for more connection, for better nourishment, for meaning. And in many, many cases, the right combination of attention, routine, and emotional care can help reverse the tide. So how do you know which it is? You don't, at least not alone. And that's why it matters to speak to someone, a doctor, a nurse, a friend, to open the door for others to see what's going on. Because in the silence, we often convince ourselves we're being dramatic. We downplay the changes. We wait too long. But bringing it into the light is not overreacting. It's honoring the life you've built. It's honoring the time you still have. One of the most powerful things you can do is to simply say, I've noticed I'm losing weight and I don't know why. Or if you're noticing it in someone else, I've been thinking about you lately. Is everything okay with your appetite? These are not confrontations. They are invitations. If you've watched all the way to this moment, I want to say something that matters. Thank you. Thank you for being brave enough to look at something many turn away from. Thank you for staying present, for listening, for caring. This journey of growing older, of paying attention to our bodies, of staying close to what matters, is not one we take alone. And the more we speak it out loud, the more we share these stories, the more light we bring to a path that can sometimes feel dim. So whether you're noticing these signs in yourself or in someone you love, I want to leave you with this. Every day is a chance to begin again, to nourish not just the body, but the soul, to say I see you in a world that sometimes forgets to look. And if this video moved you, if it made you think of someone you love, please share it. You never know who is quietly fading, waiting for a gentle reminder that they're still deeply needed here. You are not alone. You are not invisible. And even in the smallest gestures, a spoonful of warm soup, a quiet walk in the garden, a story told over tea, there is healing. So stay curious, stay open, stay connected. Because sometimes just being seen is the beginning of coming back to life.